Alright, hello. So I have these towers down here which are pretty infamously known for being, well, trash. But today I want to kind of put these to the test and see what they're good for. Maybe they're not as bad as people actually say. I also forgot that I should probably add Pyromancer in here as well. So there you go, there's our full deck of absolutely garbage towers. Now, as I said, I'm going to be putting them all to the test, and I want to find out which one of these is the worst, and which one of these might actually be useful. So I think the best one to start here would probably be with the Paintballer. The Paintballer and the Freezer are probably the towers people hate the most, at least in terms of how they perform in game, so I'm actually going to be bringing them along as well as some other defenses you might have when you're trying to use these towers. So the Paintballer is an early game tower, which is of course how I'm going to be using it. So for that, I'm only going to be using it in the early game, which means I'm going to need time to farm. So there you go, I have this loadout which I think is going to work most efficiently with the Paintballer here. I'm going with a golden minigunner here so that I can farm up for it while using Paintballers as an early defense tower. Now I want to use only one map in particular for this because, you know, I want an equal test for all of the towers. So I believe the map that I should go on here should probably be Harbor. Oh, great. I'm stuck now. Wow, that Tower Defense Simulator. What is going on? Alright, so here you go, I'm here. I guess I'm just gonna start farming as I usually would if I was just normally playing Fallen, and then use the Paintballer as an early defense tower from there. Alright, so I think it's time for me to place the Paintballer. I guess I'm gonna get it right here. So it does like, what, 2 damage here? Yeah, that's about right, but for some reason it's like leaving some of these enemies. Like, what is going on here? Like, this one has 3, that means it had to have taken 1 damage at some point, which makes no sense if it does 2 damage to everything in its range. And now it just does 1 damage. Wait, what is going on? It's supposed to be targeting the first one. You see, because the Paintballer has like no sort of sphere that indicates its explosion radius whenever it shoots, you actually don't know what enemies it's hitting, which is making it really confusing because then I can't actually tell what it's doing damage to. So I'm gonna get this level 2 Paintballer over here, and it seems to actually be handling this crowd of enemies pretty easily. Except this just doesn't make any sense to me, but that's whatever, I guess. Okay, I'm gonna get a double barrel gun, which doesn't even double its fire rate. That isn't that great, I guess. Well, at least it has an absolutely massive explosion radius, as you can see here. It's like actually seeing them. Well, that was a lot of enemies that just died at once. So I guess the Paintballer is actually really good at killing these heavies. So if you're ever looking at a good heavy killer, then consider the Paintballer, but that is probably not something I'd ever recommend. So it just shot and it did no damage, which is absolutely great. You know, that's exactly why I bring it in the first place, I guess. For the amount of money I put into this Paintballer, I guess it's actually performing decently. We're leaking a bunch of enemies though, which isn't optimal, but it's alright. I guess we can always get another Paintballer. So this is weird because why would you get this upgrade when you could just get another level 3 Paintballer and that would be even better? Well, I guess it actually wouldn't be any better, and speaking of which, I should probably get a golden mini because these Paintballers are certainly not going to be able to handle a boss. So as you can see, Paintballers are not that bad in the early game if you have like 200 health to spare to leak all the enemies that the Paintballers are not going to be able to hit. So yeah, if it wasn't for this golden mini, then these Paintballers would have just done like barely any damage and I would have died by now. But when it comes to crowds like these, the Paintballers are actually not that bad. So these Paintballers don't have hidden detection, which is great. I guess I'm going to sell one to get hidden detection on my minigunner, or rather not hidden detection, just a faster fire rate and more damage. So yeah, there's one thing you learned. Paintballers are good for selling them for money. I'm gonna place a few Paintballers at the front here just to see how they do against like mysteries that are coming out. I'm gonna get this max Paintballer, so let's just see how good this is. Well, nothing too interesting. It does exactly as it says. It does 10 damage, and supposedly the DPS on this Paintballer is... Why are the enemies taking more than 10 damage? For a second there, I thought I saw a mystery with like 7 health, meaning the Paintballer did 13 damage, but it was probably the Paintballer actually shooting twice and doing less damage, because I don't really expect this thing to be doing better than what it tells us. Alright, let's see if getting more Paintballers will do anything for us here. Isn't it great when these guys wearing these goggles over here, or whatever, this like helmet, are unable to see hiddens, but then you get a base accelerator which has nothing on it. No goggles, no glasses, no helmet, no nothing. And that can't see hidden detection. Alright, so I sold my golden mini to see if we can do anything against these Fallens, and it looks like we actually are dead. So we got like what, 3 max level paintballers and then another one over here that can do like, that apparently can do like 120 damage max to a Fallen, which I guess isn't too bad if we're looking at the amount of damage they did to all of them. But if you get just a minigunner, so as an example, let's just sell these paintballers and we get $7,500 back. And then we just buy this golden mini right here. This thing would definitely be a better option. I don't know how good it would be if we didn't have the golden skin. But yeah, I'm gonna give the paintballer a 3 out of 10. It just leaks an awful lot of enemies and doesn't even do as much damage as it says it does. But it's not like a 1 out of 10 because, you know, it can still handle crowds of early game enemies without much of a problem. So that is a use for it. Now the next tower here is the freezer. The freezer is meant to be used as a support tower, which should be able to take away defenses from enemies. The little shield under an enemy represents the amount of defense that an enemy has. Every time the freezer shoots that enemy, it should be able to reduce the shield by a certain amount of percentage until it's like half or whatever. So yeah, let me take the exact same loadout I took last time, and I'm going to be putting this to the test. I'm probably going to be going a little bit farther in the game just so that I can test out like how much more damage the other towers are really going to be doing if we're stripping off a small amount of defense. Alright, so here we go. We're going to repeat this experiment on Fallen, and I guess this time we're actually kind of doomed here. If we try to go for the freezer at the early game, it's not going to be doing any damage. I don't know if I should have changed the loadout, but I want to keep it as similar as possible. So instead, I'll be working on a farm and I'll save up money to go straight away for a golden minigunner. So by the time I am able to afford the golden minigunner, my health is going to be extremely low, and if I die, then I'm just going to restart with some different towers. Alright, so there you go. I have finally saved up enough money for a golden minigunner, which I guess I will place right here. So I'm probably going to be getting the freezer for the abnormal boss, since it is technically still supposed to be used as a support tower for, you know, holding back enemies. So I guess I just want to see, is the freeze really that helpful, or is it pretty much useless? Alright, so here we go. I can afford the freezer. I guess I'm going to place it right here and upgrade it. I want it to target strongest because I want to slow down the abnormal boss, which is probably going to be the right thing to do here. So the freeze is pretty trash here. It's only like half a second. I mean, I guess it does give us a decent amount of extra time. I'm gonna skip because I need to upgrade the minigunner, or else I'm gonna die. In fact, I might even need another freezer because this boss is gonna get out of range. So let's see if this freezer can actually save us here. Oh, well, looks like the freezer did actually save us. That doesn't automatically make it good. I guess it was just the right circumstance there. I don't know if it's going to be that helpful against this crowd of enemies anymore. Alright, so I'm dead here, so I need another golden mini, which is kind of a trash spot to get it. But if we want to really see the potential of the freezer, we obviously do have to make some sacrifices here. In this case, the sacrifice is our money. Now, this upgrade is an absolutely massive scam. You're paying $1,400 to do 2 damage on an enemy, and this thing doesn't even have hidden detection. Like, for a tower this bad, can you at least give it like a perk of hidden detection? I'm literally gonna die unless I get this. This has honestly got to be probably one of the worst upgrades in the entire game. You could place 2 scouts for like $400, or even a paintballer, which would be better for trying to get 2 damage, but no, you'd be paying $1,400. That is just the biggest waste of money I can possibly imagine. I guess I might as well upgrade the freezer just to see how good it's gonna get now. So here you go, we're paying $6,000 for this. This better be really good. We're paying $6,000 and it's barely able to hold back like 3 bosses. I'd expect for that much money to have the freezer be able to, you know, pretty easily slow down enemies. I mean, at least you can see that it lowers the defenses here, but that is honestly just like such a small advantage here that it's not even worth it. Like, let me set it on first. You see, it lowers the defenses at most by like 6%. This is practically nothing. Like, the only time you'll actually be seeing this change is probably going to be on the Ranger, and even then the damage is only going to be very small, which probably isn't even worth it for the amount of money you're going to be spending on this. Like, at that point, you might as well even get an electroshocker, because that one actually has better slowdown, and it can reduce the defense of multiple enemies at once. So you're not just focusing on one enemy to have it be killed easily. easily and then the rest be just as hard. Now, the next tower here is actually the sniper, which I feel like is actually an underrated tower. A lot of people often hate on it, they say its damage is really bad and it's only taking up cliff space, which I guess is true if you're comparing it to the ranger. But if we're looking at the tower itself, I think people are actually kind of underestimating it. But I don't know, maybe it's still just as bad as people say it is, so I'm gonna put it to the test here. Alright, so here we go again, on fallen mode, and as always, starting off with a farm. Alright, so it's about time to get the sniper. I think I'm gonna get it right here in the corner so that I could see this long road over here. And I'm immediately noticing that this tower is really bad. You see, it leaves those abnormals on 1 HP, meaning it will be attacking them twice. This is not that much of a problem on Molten mode because it'll be one-shotting the normals, but here it's a problem because if it attacks them twice, the second attack will only be dealing 1 damage. Therefore, that is 4 extra damage that you could have dealt to another enemy. So we'd be in some pretty serious trouble, so I think it would be the best for us to place down more snipers. Quicks are no problems for the snipers because they can one-shot them. So I must stack up on snipers here just so I have them for wave 7. The slows are kind of tough, so I need to make sure I can get them. So let's see if these 6 snipers are going to be able to take down these heavies. Now, would you look at this absolute scam of an upgrade? You're getting 0.5 seconds off of your fire rate. That is practically changing nothing. I guess there is still the range, but the sniper already has a pretty large range, so it's nothing really much to worry about here. I feel like the best way to go about this would obviously be to spam as many snipers as possible. Cause like, take the last upgrade of the sniper as an example. I don't remember how much it costs, but I do know that it does 30 damage per shot every, probably, I don't know, 3 seconds, I'd assume. Maybe like 4. But the thing is, these 6 snipers collectively all do 30 damage. And this is already way cheaper than a max sniper. Despite how much we all hate sniper spam, it might actually be the best way to use snipers. And it's especially useful to have plenty of snipers so that they can handle these abnormal enemies. Since each abnormal needs 2 shots to kill, then upgrading a sniper probably will not be as efficient as having 2. Since 2 will still be able to kill that same abnormal, but you'll also be getting more damage to kill other enemies. Now we have an abnormal boss, so in order to defend this, I think the best option would be to get even more snipers. Honestly, this warning is really great. It tells me exactly what I need to do. It does such a great job at explaining why I can't place a sniper when it says I clearly can. I'm gonna lose because it's not letting me place any snipers. Alright, so the abnormal boss has tons of health, but now that all the snipers are focusing on it, it's actually going down pretty fast. So let's see, we got an army of snipers and then we got a bunch of heavies. Let's see how fast they all die. That wasn't too bad, but if you look at the amount of snipers and then compare it to the cost of, say, a minigunner, I think it would honestly be better to place a minigunner. Now, let me actually upgrade a sniper because hiddens are coming in soon, and as you can see, this upgrade is also pretty bad. For $500, you're getting an extra 2 damage when you can place an extra sniper, get an entire 5 damage, and it'll only be 350. Now this sniper has actually increased a pretty good amount here, so I think we're gonna need like 2 of these to be able to handle all of the shadows pretty easily. Oh, the reload on these snipers is still really bad. Alright, so I got a max sniper, and I believe that is going to save me here. Okay, so we're paying like $4,000 to do like barely any damage here. The DPS on this is completely not worth it. I literally think just a $2,000 minigunner has better DPS than this sniper. Now, of course, this sniper does have full map range, so you gotta give it credit for that. Okay, but this fire rate is actually so bad, I'm literally gonna die to it. I'm gonna get a commander to hopefully save us here. So even with the ability here, the fire rate is still pretty trashy. Honestly, if I didn't have this commander, I'd probably be screwed right now. Alright, so commander's ability isn't up and we have a bunch of fallen, so I'm pretty sure we're dead. Wow, I'm surprised I was actually able to survive. That is pretty impressive for the sniper. Well, we got even more fallens incoming this wave, so let's see if the snipers can take these down. And we were able to deal with all of them. That wasn't too hard, surprisingly. Okay, so now it's time for the giant boss. Let's see how much damage all of these snipers are going to be doing to the giant boss here. Seems like we're getting pretty bad RNG here with these bosses and fallens, but We got all of them. Alright, so looking at the damage we're doing to the giant boss, it is actually kind of bad. I mean, at this point, with the amount of snipers we have, we probably could have afforded a maxed accelerator. And a maxed accelerator would have been able to deal with this way earlier, like probably when it was over here or something. That being said, we can at least still kill the giant boss. But yeah, the sniper kind of starts struggling around here to these fallens and all of these other enemies pushing. Alright, so I think I've seen enough. I'm gonna move into the lobby and give my opinions on this sniper. Alright, so the sniper is actually not that bad. It can handle early game pretty well if you have a lot of them, but once it starts moving into the later game, they get really expensive and they don't deal that much damage. So if you're using snipers, you should probably have commanders along with them, but of course the best option is just to use a different tower. I'm actually going to give this a 6 out of 10, which is a pretty decently high rating for such a tower that people call horrible. And the reason for this is because it's actually really good in the early game with handling all of the early game waves. Now the most important thing to keep track of when you're using the sniper is to sell the snipers when somebody needs to use rangers. Rangers are just far better than these snipers, unless you're looking for hidden detection of course. But even then there's better options, like even the scout I'd probably recommend over the sniper. So the next tower is the Rocketeer. Let me just grab all of the defenses I'm going to need, yet again starting with a farm and voting fallen mode. So I don't know if the Rocketeer is like an early game or mid game tower. I guess I'm going to be testing it out and see what it excels in. I'm pretty sure that it'll be alright in the early game, I guess. Like it'll be able to handle the crowds of enemies, but as soon as we get the boss, then it's going to start struggling and it's going to be a pretty bad option for a tower to use. Alright, so here we go with the Rocketeer. So how's the same reload as the sniper, and it does 8 damage. So at killing quicks, it's not really that good because the fire rate is so bad it's just gonna miss them. Even a single sniper will do a better job at killing quicks than this Rocketeer. The explosion radius of this is actually kind of dog water. You notice that the Rocketeer is focusing on all of these quicks up front, which is kind of causing him to be distracted from all of these abnormals, and that is really weird. This one only took 5 damage when it says it does 8. So the first 2 upgrades do practically nothing except for increase its fire rate and range, which means you're getting no extra damage, so I'd probably recommend just getting another Rocketeer instead of upgrading it. However, if we look here, the damage is actually not that bad, I guess. Let's see if I'm able to afford it with all these farms. And unfortunately, I am not able to afford it. So I just skipped a wave and I might actually die to these early game enemies. Alright, there you go. I got the upgrade. Let's see if it was even worth it. That was actually still a really bad explosion radius. And look, it could still only kill 2 quicks in one shot. Like, this isn't even, well, I mean, it killed 3 there, but that was because it was at a corner. We have to be able to at least kill these heavies, right? Come on. I mean, that damage wasn't horrible, but this is actually extremely depressing. For the amount of money I paid for this Rocketeer, we're actually losing. Alright, so I'm going to be giving the Rocketeer a 1 out of 10, because that performance was just pathetic. We were barely able to do any damage before we died. The quicks just absolutely eat up all of the damage, and I personally don't find a reason to use this. You can literally use a Paintballer and get better splash damage from the Paintballer than from the Rocketeer. I was going to test the Pyromancer, but I think these are all of the results we need. The Pyromancer is actually a pretty good early game tower as long as you sell it. If you do not sell the Pyromancer later on in the game, then I'll actually start making your game harder rather than easier, obviously because it speeds up enemies, so you can use it in the early game as long as it's able to kill everything. And also not to mention that it actually is very useful in Outpost 32 for dealing with the early waves, but I feel like there's no need to show it since this video is about the worst tower and I think I know which one it is. Alright, so the worst tower in Tower Defense Simulator, at least in my opinion, is the Rocketeer, right here. I mean, the freezer at least managed to save us from an abnormal boss. This thing just died super early on. It couldn't even fulfill its purpose of being an early game tower. At least the freezer could fulfill its purpose of slowing down enemies. Even if it's just a bit, it could still help, as we saw earlier. But yeah, the moral of the story is to not use any of these towers. I hope you enjoy. Make sure to like and use StarCode E, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.